Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to have a conversation about one just enormous problem that is destroying modern comic books basically across the board. And there's a lot of things that different publishers do or a lot of initiatives that aren't going to work, but they're not really across the board. I believe this huge issue, it comes from the comic book writers themselves. And you're talking to me about that is a comic book editor and writer, Aaron Sparrow. How you doing, Aaron?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Wes.
Well, I'm glad that you can make it. This is going to be a fun conversation. At least it is for me. I hope the people like it as well. The one problem that I see, it goes across the board, whether it's like SJW comics, whether it's sci-fi comics, whether it has any of the bad stuff that we don't like in it, even if they make a solid attempt at trying to write a good story, it's characterization. It feels like modern writers don't know how to distinguish characters in their stories. They don't know how to give them their own authentic voices. Every character kind of ends up sounding the same, which absolutely destroys the story. It kills anticipation on characters interacting and like big blowups are going to happen. And here's an example I have. I have little bitty kids in my house, and I have to watch a program called Loco Nuts. And in Loco Nuts, there's like 6 characters. There's a dog, a cat, an elephant, a monkey. There's some other ones. They're all little animals. None of them ever speak a word during any of the songs or any of their interactions. But every one of these characters has a fully defined actual personality. When they interact, not even using language, but the way their facial features or the way that they interact with each other, I know who the character is and it feels authentic to them. If you can do it in kids programming without any dialogue, how can you not do it in an actual action-based comic book with speaking?
Well, as someone who has been complimented for giving characters distinctive voice, from Darkwing Duck, everybody, now that was a little bit easier because I had the voice actors to go off of, so I could draw from their distinct personalities, but it still was me going in, watching that, really learning the characters' personalities, doing the research, even though I was a fan of the show, but like going in and doing the research and really kind of like trying to nail down what it was that defined each character so that they all sounded authentic. And even I saw a review for Death Rage recently where someone said the dialogue is really good, it feels really natural, and each character kind of has a distinctive voice. So I'm always happy to read that because I do put a lot of work into giving each character a distinctive voice. Unfortunately, the comics industry has gotten to a point where they don't pay enough to get writers who A, can do that, or B, if they can, it's not worth it for them to sit down and put in all that work because the amount of money that they're getting for their labor is just not enough. And but that's, part of the Ouroboros, the snake devouring its own tail, is now you've written a bad book, now people don't read it, now the book gets canceled, comic sales go down, and they can't afford to pay anybody. So it's just this vicious circle that keeps happening in the comic book industry. And it's part of the reason that, we're getting the slop that we're getting.
And you're seeing it kind of grow and grow. Originally, basically, over the last 10 years, every new character was the same person. It was a teenage, likely diverse hero that was a super genius, and everyone really liked and admired. And that was basically all new characters that DC had Marvel for a very long time. But you had the original characters in like 60 to 80 years of history on a lot of the mainstream characters, like your Iron Man, your Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, and stuff like this. But what I've seen in the last 3 or 4 years is even those characters, where you have so much history, you have so many comics that have been published with them, so many character-defining moments that these writers should be aware of, where even those characters are losing like their distinctive voices about them. Like if you have a scenario where the hero saves the day and there's a little kid, and the little kid goes to the hero and says, "Well, thank you so much. You saved my life." Captain America, Superman, Iron Man, and Wolverine should all have a different reaction to that interaction because they all have distinctive personalities. Wolverine probably should play them to kid no mind and be like, whatever. Superman should probably get down there and be like, "Oh, well, I'm really happy that I can help you out here, kid. Make sure that you listen to your mom and dad." Iron Man should be bragging about himself. If it's Batman, he should ask him if he wants to be a Robin. Some stuff like that. But we're losing all those things, and you end up losing this really good tension because, like in an old school X-Men comic book, you would see Scott do something, and you'd be like, "Oh my God." When Wolverine finds out about this, or he's told about it, he's going to lose his mind, and there's going to be really good conflict. Or the other way around, when Wolverine would do something, you'd be like, "Oh, Scott's the leader. There's no way he would go about this." And you'd be waiting for that page to happen where these two finally came together and had these interactions. But you don't get that anymore because none of these characters are who they are anymore.
No, and the cost of that is that you don't get those big impactful moments. Like, do you remember when Jeff Johns did that little brief Avengers run, and the red dust of death was spreading through the entire town, and people are dying, and that little kid has lost his parents, and he doesn't know where his parents are, and he's crying, and he's like, I just want to go home. And then you see that red glove come down, and it says, don't worry, son. And you turn the page, and Captain America's holding him, and he's like, we're going to get you home. And that's the last page of the book, and you're like, holy crap, that was impactful, because that's Captain America. That's what you want. You want Captain America to show up, because no matter what's going on, everything's going to be okay. Well, that's not Captain America anymore. Now Captain America is going to show up, and he's going to whine about, America never was great, and American dream never did exist. That's what you're going to get, because you're getting the writer's agenda instead of the character's personality. Do you remember when Phoenix was going to kill the Black Queen? She had set out to track her down and murder her in her sleep if she could. And Wolverine went after her and was like, we don't do that. And she's like, you kill all the time. And he's like, yeah, if somebody comes at me with a blade, I'll meet him with a blade. But, we don't do this. We don't murder. And she's like, the only way to stop me, Wolverine, is to kill me. And the last panel is just snicked, and you got to wait for the next issue, because that's a character-driven moment. It matters. These things don't matter anymore because the characters don't have well-defined personalities.
But I do think we really do get a lot of novice writers who have no idea about the characters or how to give that character a voice. And you lose that relationship that you have with the character. I don't have a relationship really with a writer. Maybe a couple that, I'm fond of. I really like Robert Venditti. If his name's on something, I'm going to go read it.
Yep.
I kind of feel that way right now about like a Jeremy Adams.
Yep.
I think he's going to do a good job. But for the most part, for the last 20 years, my relationship was with the character. And once you start to lose that, that's one of the big reasons where you lose that need to go out there and read the next issue, or want to go and pick up the next miniseries, or how is this event going to impact these characters that I love, because they're not really impacting them anymore. It's just like some weird, watered down, finagled, lame ass version of something that you used to know.
Yeah, people don't understand how to build things out of the characters anymore. And, with a lot of the novice writers, I blame the editors, because you have untalented editors in charge. They're just passing things across the table. It doesn't feel like they do any editing or give any notes whatsoever. You used to have group editors that handled these characters day in and day out. And if the character was loaned out to, like, let's say an X-Men character was going to appear in Amazing Spider-Man, that had to get bounced past Claremont and the editor of the X books. So they made sure that it was consistent and it didn't contradict the character or anything else that was going on in the books that they primarily star in. And it doesn't seem like you have that anymore. It seems like you have a lot of just disconnected, we're just putting out books, we're just putting things on the shelves, and it doesn't matter. And somebody doesn't even have to do any research. You can just go read a Wikipedia article and glean a couple of things from their history, and then you can throw that in. Like, you can look and see, oh, they knew this character, they knew that character. I'll make sure to throw that character in. But when the character appears, they don't talk like themselves, they don't act like themselves. Tim Drake Robin is a perfect example. The Megan Fitzmartin Tim Drake Robin might as well just be a clone or an alternate version from another universe, and probably should be. It should get shunted off that only happened in a mirror universe, because there's nothing about the decades of Tim's characterization in that character. It's just she came in and decided she wanted to write a story, and she's using them as little meat puppets to tell the story that she wants to tell, but that story is not born out of the character or their personalities. So ultimately, it rings false with the reader.
Have you ever seen an example where a large fan base of readers develop that relationship, not with the characters, not with the universe, but with the writer itself, to where every time they take over a book, they kind of push themselves into it? Like, one of the writers I think of when I say something like that is like a Kelly Sue DeConnick. When you read a Kelly Sue DeConnick Aquaman, you're not reading an Aquaman book, you're reading a Kelly Sue DeConnick book. Just like when you're reading a Kelly Sue DeConnick Wonder Woman book, you're not reading a Wonder Woman book, you're reading a Kelly Sue DeConnick book with a Wonder Woman-like character in it. And I just personally have never seen it happen. There are writers who do different genres, like an Ed Brubaker does great noir stuff. But when you read his stories, they are individual characters, and he actually explores different things, especially when his different titles. Obviously, he did Criminal for a very long time, and that was one shared world. Even like a Brian K. Vaughan, who obviously did Saga. And that's what every publisher in comic books would like to be able to make, is something like Saga that has a hard feminist, progressive edge to it, but actually has sales to it. It's like the only one out there. Brian K. Vaughan and nobody else has ever been able to duplicate that.
No, it's kind of it's really interesting, because I don't think that necessarily that was what drew people to the book either. It was just I think he was telling a story that people were engaged in, and those things were just on the periphery. But everybody else seems to try to make that the main focus, and that never works. So Saga is a really interesting. It's a really interesting example. It's really an outlier.
Yeah, but I think that's what they want the industry to be, but they can never duplicate it. They've never been able to make that something that drives a mainstream audience. There is an audience for Saga, but it's only for Saga.
Yeah, and it's just because Brian K. Vaughan can actually write a story. He deftly kind of wove a narrative there that people were intrigued by and interested in. And even if they didn't necessarily agree with, the positions of the characters in the book, they were still interested in seeing where they ended up. And you can do that. You can not like a character, but still be interested in seeing, finding out where they're coming from and seeing where they're going and seeing how they develop. There's a lot of movies that do that really well, especially when you have like an anti-hero. You look at the guy and you're like, I don't know if I like this guy, but I'm interested in seeing where this goes. Comic writers, by and large, because they are novices and because there aren't editors that are training them in how to do these things and teaching them and giving them notes, because that they don't have time for it, they're not interested, they're just jaded and just going through the motions, like some of the guys at Marvel seem to be doing. Some of the upper echelon just seem to be there to cash a check and pass the time. There's no new generation that's being taught how to do these things by like these masters, because the people that are really good at it have moved on to more lucrative industries like writing video games.
One of the things that I think is happening at Marvel and DC specifically, where they're hiring writers, new writers, but they're all coming from the exact same point of view with the characters. So everything does feel watered down. It feels like the same exact story over and over and over again, no matter what character that you're getting. Do you think the fact that Marvel and DC almost refuse to go out there and hire maybe an openly conservative creator, or maybe a creator from a background that doesn't get them headlines or whatever, and the fact that they're really just checking a lot of boxes a lot of times when they're doing the hiring, has made everything boring? I think that's what happened.
Yeah, it's made everything boring. It's made everything bland. It's made everything the same. And every single character has the same point of view because they're written by people who are essentially brainwashed and can't imagine any point of view but that point. They're in their little bubble and everybody mirrors their same, for everybody's part of this, conformist kind of mindset. So, you don't want to branch out because you'll be attacked by, your fellow creators. So everybody just kind of has the same bland delivery and nobody challenges characters. Nobody challenges themselves. If you can't challenge yourself and you can't challenge your own thinking, then you're certainly not going to do it within your writing.
Yeah, but you can't have a Batman and a Superman and a Green Arrow and an Iron Man and a Daredevil all coming to the exact same conclusion from the same exact stimuli. They're different people. They have different backgrounds. They're from different parts of the world. They represent different things in their heroism. And it's ruined everything, in my opinion. That's the one thing, even more than shoving like political stuff into comics or whatever. The fact that everything has just become the same because there's no distinct characterization is really made modern comics just almost unreadable a lot of times.
No, I think a lot of the problem is just the moral relativism that we have in society right now. You can't have characters that break the mold of what the consensus is on morality and what's right and what is to be championed. You can't even tell a story like, you could tell a story where a character comes out and you could have a hero, because of their background, be really uncomfortable with it. And you could tell a compelling story there about how that character eventually, gets to the point of, okay, well, you know what, I still love this person, even though I'm not comfortable with this because of their religion or, whatever. But you're not allowed to do that. You're only allowed to have like one, you got to introduce the guy who's all hateful and is using slurs, and then he gets beat up, and everybody that knows them is absolutely thrilled. You can't do anything interesting with characters if you're not allowed to have different viewpoints, and if you're not allowed to have those conflicts rub up against each other.
As an editor yourself, is it the younger generation? Are they just not willing to take advice? Are they not willing to take a lead from an editor?
I just think that there aren't editors that are giving them that lead. It's like,
well, I mean, who's going to give it to them? Like Heather Antos, the other lady with the wide eyes.
Yeah, I don't know. Those are assistant editors. Now, granted, some of them have been promoted, to much higher positions. But the
assistant editor, she's the entire.
Oh yeah, no,
that's
what I'm saying. No, now they've been promoted. But yeah, no, they're not going to get any challenge there, and it's because those people don't know how to tell stories either. They have not been trained because they've just been hired for whatever reason, and then promoted because they're a body that's still there that hasn't bailed because they're not getting paid enough. So what are you going to do if the people at the top aren't going to lead? You're not going to have people in the middle who are going to lead. There has to be a continual drive for excellence. And the comic industry, at the big two, they long ago abandoned that drive. They're not trying for excellence. They're just trying to stay employed. And unfortunately, that's the term quiet quit. I feel like everybody at Marvel is quiet quit. Tom Brevoort quiet quit a long time ago. That's why he tweets things like, "Oh, I don't know how I'm going to get out of bed this morning." Like every now and then you get those tweets from him. It's like, if you're not enjoying this anymore, do something else. You're not trapped. You can go do something that makes you happy and make room for somebody to come in with some fire and some passion that really wants to make a difference and wants to tell compelling stories. All they need is to replace a couple of key positions at Marvel or DC with people that actually give a crap instead of promoting Jim Lee, who clearly doesn't. And all you need is a couple of key positions replaced so that people can light a fire under everybody and get everybody on board. Some real leadership in there would go a long way to fixing the comic book industry, but I don't think it's going to happen.
In the Air Force, or just in the military in general, we called it retired on active duty. Yes, they were still getting paid technically, but you could tell they were making plans to do something else. They weren't really working no more.
Yeah, their mind was somewhere else. Does CB Cebulski love comics? I don't know. I know he loves food. I know
that dude loves some sushi, bro.
Yeah, it's like he'll talk about that all day. But
fucking dumplings.
What does comic books get from him? Is he excited about anything that they're doing? I mean, I think the last tweet I remember for him where he was like, "Oh, remember when we sold 1 million copies of Star Wars #1? Think I'm ready to do it again." And then they announced J.J. Abrams on Spider-Man. Yeah, that worked out, didn't it?
That was awful.
They're out of touch. They don't know what the fans want, and the fans have told them. And instead of listening to the fans, they just let the fans walk away.
I really enjoy talking to Aaron about stuff like that. Obviously, being a pro in the industry as an editor and a writer, he has a different perspective than mine. I did talk about this one time about how modern writers were actually destroying the craft of storytelling in comic books. If you haven't seen this one, these are some other thoughts that I had on the situation. There's also a link in the video description.